Hello guys, welcome back to Anime Moments. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Against the Gods based on novel. So let's start explanation. What did you say? Yoon Wei-tian became enraged again. You actually want my son to undergo soul search? Outrageous, absolutely outrageous. The profound handle soul search was indeed a special ability exclusive to the Yoon family due to their profound handle. Normal soul searches were not only risky, if it backfired, the consequences were unimaginable. Even if it did work, the mind of the person whose soul was being searched would receive huge damage and he might even turn straight into an idiot. For the profound handle soul search, even if it failed due to the target's mind being too strong, there would not be any side effects. Furthermore, when it succeeds, it would not cause mental damage to the target. When Yoon Chae was originally attacking Burning Heaven clan, he had used his profound handle to forcefully obtain another person's memories, hence, he was very clear about the strengths of the profound handle. 20 years ago, the only reason Yoon Ching-hong and his wife knew about Yoon Sung-hai being locked within Profound Sky Continent was also due to the profound handle soul search stealing another person's memories. Duke Hui-yi laughed slightly, asking, Yoon Chae, that is your so-called proof? Other than that, do you still have any other proof? Just this one proof is already more than enough. Yoon Chae replied. So that's it, very good. Duke Hui-yi nodded slowly and a smile that had a slight sense of ridicule appeared on his face for an instant before he turned to Yoon Shin-yu and said, I have heard of the Yoon family's profound handle soul search more than once and I hear that it would not cause any harmful effects to the target. Now that someone is accusing you of harming a fellow clan member and the princess of the Under Heaven clan, and says that a profound handle would prove it. Yoon Shin-yu, do you dare to undergo the soul search in front of everyone to prove your innocence? Yoon Shin-yu stepped out, his face darkened and his whole body trembled. It was obvious he was enraged to his breaking point, but had been suppressing his rage with his willpower as he said, why wouldn't I dare? I, Yoon Shin-yu, have a clear conscience, always treat my family honestly, and have never even had any thoughts of harming them. In my whole life, until now, the shame and anger I received due to being accused and framed, I would rather die than carry the name of a traitor. Under the profound handle soul search, everything I say would be true and it would best prove my innocence. I plead the elders to allow me to undergo the soul search to prove my innocence. The words of Yoon Shin-yu were said with anger, determination, and without hesitation. The masses had not believed Yoon Chae's words and after looking at Yoon Shin-yu's attitude, which lacked retaliation against Yoon Chae's suggestion of undergoing the profound handle soul search, even the slightest bit of doubt they originally possessed had disappeared, turning into anger and resentment against Yoon Chae. Good. Duke Hui-yi nodded, as his voice seemed to have calmed down. Being accused in public is not a good feeling. I can understand your anger and desire to clear your name. However, your reply has left me disappointed. Yoon Shin-yu was stunned. This? I ask your highness to please enlighten me. HMPH. Duke Hui-yi sorted heavily and said seriously, I had originally thought that Yoon Chae would be able to bring out some proof but all he had was only a profound handle soul search. This is such a joke. Without any evidence, his accusations are merely a joke and even an idiot would not believe them. With such accusations, he had wanted you to undergo profound handle soul search to prove yourself. How could there be such a ridiculous matter in this world? If such a thing were to happen, then I can also, without evidence, accuse the whole Yoon family of treason. Then would each and every one of you undergo the profound handle soul search to prove yourselves. Furthermore, who are you? You're the son of the great elder of the Yoon family and the person who's going to be the next patriarch. Your status is high and noble. And this Yoon Chae is just a brat who nobody knows where he came from. If he wants you undergo profound handle soul search and you willing do it, would you still have any bit of pride and respect as a child of the Yoon family? If you were to really undergo soul search and prove your innocence, from now onwards, the entire illusory demon realm would know that the respectable new patriarch of the Yoon family had to undergo the profound handle soul search in front of everyone just to prove his innocence from some random brat's accusation. Ha 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 ha. That would be a joke that would shame all of Yoon family, and don't you think it would even cause the whole illusory demon realm to look down upon the Yoon family? In the future, Wouldn't words from a child or some random beggar force the Yun family patriarch to use the soul search to prove himself? Duke Huiyi words were shocking, and also caused all the disciples of the Yun family to awaken and feel indignation. Numerous younger generation disciples instantly shouted out, Duke Huiyi is right, Yun Xinyu cannot undergo the profound handle soul search, otherwise our Yun family would become a laughingstock. The fact that Brother Xinyu was willing to step up to undergo the profound handle soul search without hesitation is enough proof that he's innocent. Who the heck is Yun Che? Hurry up and chase him out. To accuse Brother Xinyu like this, crippling him right here and now isn't even too much. We know that Brother Xinyu is definitely innocent. He doesn't need to prove himself at all. This Yun Che is really too despicable. Yun Xinyu trembled. After being stunned for a while, he looked down and replied with guilt, Your Highness has taught me well. I was only thinking of proving my innocence and did not think of the bigger picture. I nearly caused the entire Yun family to become a laughingstock because of my selfishness. Ha ha, Duke Huiyi faintly laughed, I know how you feel. But the fact that you were willing to undergo the profound handle soul search is enough proof of your innocence. The edges of Yun Che's mouth twitched as he laughed coldly to himself. This two-man show is truly flawless, even I was almost about to believe him. Yun Weijian cupped his fists toward Duke Huiyi and said agitatedly, Duke Huiyi had said everything that I wanted to say. How could my son's innocence be placed on the same level as the prestige of the Yun family? Even if he had to carry the name of a sinner who harmed his fellow clansmen, this profound handle soul search cannot be allowed. I thank your Highness for reminding my child about this. Although your Highness is not much older than my child, you are much better than my child in handling such situations. Duke Huiyi laughed slightly and said, Great Elder is too kind. As the accused party, it is no wonder that anger clouded his mind, that he couldn't think properly. I am an onlooker and can naturally see the bigger picture more clearly. He. Just as Duke Huiyi finished talking, sarcastic and inharmonious laughter rang out. Duke Huiyi glanced at Helian Peng and asked, Elder Helian, what are you laughing about? Helian Peng stood up and sarcastically said, Your Highness, don't you find this extremely laughable? Although the Yun family has been in decline, they are still one of the 12 guardian families. But at the family gathering of a guardian family, a wild brat actually appeared to cause trouble. What's even more laughable is that even now, he's still standing there perfectly fine. Ha 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 ha, if this were to happen in my Helian family, just the fact that he made such accusations, let's not talk about the patriarch, but even if it were a normal disciple, if it was a light punishment, he would be crippled on the spot, and if it was heavy, he would be put to death immediately. But this Yun family, he, is really appalling, laughable, yet pitiable. Where is there any bit of their guardian family aura and greatness? It's hard for me even if I don't want to laugh. Although Helian Peng's words were sarcastic, they were straight to the point, instantly causing all the elders and disciples present to be embarrassed as they looked at Yun Che with rage. Yun Weijian instantly walked forward and commanded, Enforcement Elder, hurry and capture this brat whose intentions are malicious. Hearing what was said, the Enforcement Elder flew and landed on the stage. Just as he was about to rush towards Yun Che, a calm yet slightly authoritative voice sounded, Stop. Although the voice was not too serious and did not pack much feelings, it caused the Enforcement Elder to stop. That was because this voice had come from Yun Qinghong. Yun Qinghong, you finally talked. I thought you were going to watch this show until the end. Yun Weijian laughed and he even called Yun Qinghong by his name. What is it? Are you going to protect this audacious and reckless so-called godson of yours? Or are his actions really your wishes? You're right. I am indeed going to protect him. Yun Qinghong said calmly as he looked directly at Yun Weijian. His calm gaze made Yun Weijian feel an authoritativeness that should not have existed, as his body uncontrollably tensed up. Enforcement Elder, step down. Yun Qinghong said. Hearing those words, the Enforcement Elder was stunned and looked at the Great Elder. Seeing that he did not move, Yun Qinghong frowned and his voice instantly became deeper, step down. These two words were not harsh, but in the ears of the Yun family disciples, they were as deafening as thunder, and all the elders looked at Yun Qinghong in shock. After being crippled for more than 20 years, Yun Qinghong had led a reclusive life and rarely cared about family matters. He had also never scolded anyone, and this was the first time the disciples of the young generation had heard their crippled patriarch give such an authoritative command. The enforcement elder's body trembled and he frantically uttered, "Yes," before quickly retreating. Yun Qinghong's gaze turned and landed on Yun Xinyu, as he said in a calm yet undeniable tone, "Yun Xinyu, step on stage and be prepared to receive the profound handle soul search." Once Yun Qinghong's words came out, everyone was stunned and the place grew restless. Duke Huiyi's brows twitched as he asked in a slightly angry tone, "Patriarch Yun, what is the meaning of this?" "What do I mean? Who are you to care?" Yun Qinghong coolly replied, "This is my Yun family's matters and I don't need you to be gesticulating here." The mutters of the entire arena immediately turned into dead silence and everyone stared in awe, wondering whether there was a problem with their ears. Yun Qinghong actually scolded this Duke Huiyi, and actually scolded him without leaving him face. Duke Huiyi's face immediately darkened as he coldly laughed, "Patriarch Yun, you dare act so disrespectful towards me?" HMPH. Yun Qinghong laughed it off coolly, "So what if I'm disrespectful towards you? From the moment you stepped into my Yun family grounds until now, have you given me, the patriarch, any respect? I am from the same generation as your father, and my father is the reputable Demon King. His title of king is of the same seniority as your grandfather. In the past when your father saw me, he still had to obediently call me Big Brother. Me teaching you a lesson only natural, and you, a junior, entered my Yun family, yet did not pay respects to me, the patriarch. Instead, you continuously interfered with my family matters in front of me. Your actions are wild and arrogant, and now you even question me for being disrespectful towards you. Is this how your father usually teaches you? HMPH, you're a disgrace to your father, grandfather, and the entire illusory demon royal family. In fact, you've lost all their face." Yun Qinghong's angry rebuke carried an incomparably shocking aura. Every word that came from his mouth was accompanied by an ostensible pressure which took the air out of the entire building. Every single person present could feel the weight of this oppressive aura, and all the Yun family members present, from the elders to the young disciples, every single one of them had been stunned into silence. Even Yun Xiao's mouth was gaping open, and he looked at Yun Qinghong with a gaze which scarcely could contain his disbelief. The father he was familiar with was a courtly and peaceable man, and on most days he did not speak much, nor was he willing to interact with other people, to the point where he rarely even left his own courtyard. He had seemed to have reached a state where he was detached from all worldly affairs. He could scarcely believe that his own father, facing the respected Duke Huiyi, would utter such strong, unyielding words. And these words even carried such a tyrannical power. Duke Huiyi would never even dream that Yun Qinghong would deliver such a furious denunciation. Yun Qinghong was clearly a cripple, but facing his current gaze, even he as Duke, felt his heart skip a beat. And he, as an esteemed Duke, when had ever been lectured so harshly in the public eye? He pointed a finger at Yun Qinghong and in a voice which faintly trembled, "Yun Qinghong, you. How impudent." Yun Qinghong's voice sank an octave further as he directly cut off Duke Huiyi's words, the three words, "Yun Qinghong, they for you to say. I, Yun Qinghong, made a name for myself in the demon imperial city at the age of 14. At that time, your royal father was not even born yet. And even the little demon emperor would address me as brother. Who do you think you are, to dare to address this patriarch's name so casually? To have no regard for one's seniors, to show such lack of courtesy, to be so utterly lacking in breeding, and to be filled with such foolish conceit. To top it all off, you have such an exaggerated opinion of yourself that even when you have thrown your royal father's face all over the ground, you do not even know it. The entire illusory demon royal family has truly been shamed to the ground because of you. Such an inferior child, even this patriarch can hardly even be bothered to correct you. HMPH. Duke Huiyi's entire body trembled. His eyes grew dark, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He, Duke Huiyi, after arriving at the Yun family holdings, had been welcomed with respect by the great elder himself, and the gazes directed towards him were filled with reverence. When he spoke, everyone echoed his words and not one had dared to put a foot wrong. What an impressive spectacle that had been. As for this patriarch, Yun Qinghong, a cripple, he had not even deigned to give him a single glance. He was currently being scolded miserably by this cripple for the entire world to see. And every single rebuke was impossible for him to refute. The present scene had become blanketed in dead silence, and everyone's ears were still buzzing with the sound of Yun Qinghong berating Duke Huiyi. His words had caused some of the seniors to recall the memories they had of Yun Qinghong. He was the son of the Demon King, and his innate talent had been even higher than the Demon King at the same age. Amongst all those of his generation, including the illusory demon royal family, none were his equal. At the age of 14, he had caused shockwaves throughout the entire demon imperial city, and all the seniors knew this fact intimately. And the fact that he and the little demon emperor called each other brother was also an unimpeachable fact. At that time, no one would doubt that Yun Qinghong would succeed Yun Songhai as the second demon king. After a silence which lasted more than 20 years, people had nearly forgotten just what kind of figure Yun Qinghong used to be. But his sudden crippling could not wipe away his past glories. And his title as the youngest ever monarch in the history of the illusory demon realm was something that no one could take away. His splendor was so dazzling that it practically burned the eyes, and up till this day, no one had surpassed it. When Yun Qinghong was at the same age as Duke Huiyi, his accomplishments were something that Duke Huiyi did not even have the right to discuss. Once these memories were jolted back to life, these seniors immediately felt that the wanton rudeness that Duke Huiyi showed Yun Qinghong was just too ridiculous. Patriarch. This is truly our patriarch. An elder stood up excitedly. Is the patriarch, is he coming back? His excitement was not allowed to continue, as the one who sat beside him restrained him and dragged him back into his seat. The other person, who bore a solemn expression, gave his head a heavy shake. The excited elder's expression suddenly tightened, and he swiftly curbed his exuberance as he settled down. Among the core elders and normal elders, a large majority of them displayed looks of astonished joy and emotion on their faces, but they swiftly smothered their expressions. And amidst the raucous and rowdy environment, no one had noticed this particular point. But Yun Che just happened to be facing the direction where the elders were seated, and he took note of the temporary change in expression amongst those seated there. His gaze grew concentrated, and a deep astonishment emerged in the depths of his eyes. Could it be? After Yun Qinghong had finished his stern rebuke, he gave a cold snort, and no longer paid any attention to Duke Huiyi. With sunken brows, he looked towards Yun Xinyu, who had an overcast and uncertain expression on his face. He said, Yun Xinyu, what are you still standing there for? Come forward immediately and prepare yourself to receive the profound handle soul search. Yun Qinghong's sudden explosion completely caught Yun Weitian by surprise. Once he heard Yun Qinghong's words, his eyes narrowed, and he swiftly said, Yun Qinghong, you do not go overboard. Overboard? How am I going overboard? Yun Qinghong replied in a sedate voice. Yun Weitian, in a tone that was unyielding and stubborn, we already clarified before that Xinyu will definitely not be allowed to submit himself to the profound handle soul search, or else our Yun family will become the laughingstock of the entire illusory demon realm. Are you, for the sake of protecting your godson, willing to even disregard the sanctity of our clan's honor? Yun Qinghong's gaze was calm and tranquil. Being held directly under that gaze, Yun Weitian suddenly felt like it was difficult to breathe. He faintly began to feel that the previous Yun Qinghong, the previous Yun family patriarch, after a long hibernation of 22 years, was finally back. If we go solely by the words of an outsider, there is indeed no real reason for us to subject Xinyu to a profound handle soul search. Yun Qinghong's voice suddenly grew more serious as he continued, but now, it is this patriarch's command. Has it come to this? That I, as the head of this clan, cannot even order a junior in the family to do such a simple thing? Ugh! Yun Weitian's throat violently contracted as he was left speechless. Yun Xinyu, come on stage to receive the profound handle soul search right now. This is an order. Yun Qinghong commanded. Yun Xinyu's hand started to shake, his forehead was covered with a sheen of cold sweat. He threw a pleading gaze towards Duke Huiyi, but he discovered instead that Duke Huiyi's expression was also extremely ugly. Even though he saw Xinyu's silent cry for help, he could not force any words out of his mouth. Yun Qinghong's fierce and cruel criticism had choked him up to the point where he felt like he was going to explode. Ha 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 ha. This is pathetic, it is simply too pathetic. Yun Qinghong, do you really still think that you are the Yun Qinghong of old? Right now, all that you truly are is a mere cripple. Helian Peng once again let out his shrill, mocking laugh. Even if I am a cripple, I am still the Yun family patriarch. Yun family patriarch? Hee hee, Helian Peng's mocking laugh arose once again. What evidence can you bring out to prove that you are the Yun family patriarch? What right do you have to call yourself the Yun family patriarch? Even an outsider like myself knows that the one symbol which proves the status of a Yun family patriarch is the patriarch's crest that has been handed down since the time of your ancestor. Only if you have the patriarch's crest, can you be the Yun family patriarch. It is just like how, within the illusory demon royal family, only the one who holds the demon emperor's seal is the true demon emperor. Yun Qinghong, since you call yourself a patriarch, then you must have the patriarch's crest. All those years ago, because he did not have the demon emperor's seal, the little demon emperor did not dare to assume the title of demon emperor, and the little demon empress could only be called that very title. Even the little demon emperor and empress did it in such a way. So Yun Qinghong, if you do not have the patriarch's crest, what right do you have to call yourself the Yun family patriarch? And what right do you have to order your clansmen around? 100 years ago, as the demon king Yun Sunghai left and never came back, the Yun family's patriarch's crest disappeared along with him. And it was only after these events that Yun Qinghong succeeded him as patriarch. The Yun family's patriarch's crest had been lost for 100 years. This was something every single person in the demon imperial city knew. Because this patriarch's crest could be said to be the most important artifact to the Yun family, and within it contained the most original form of the purple cloud art, it even held the power imprint and soul imprint of every single person who had ever held the title of patriarch. Once it was lost, it was impossible to duplicate or replace it. After Yun Qinghong had finally emerged from his silence of 22 years to once more forcefully proclaim his status as patriarch, Helian Peng had deliberately chosen to mention the patriarch's crest that had been lost for 100 years. It was truly an insidious assault against Yun Qinghong's weak point. But Yun Qinghong was not the least bit flustered, the corners of eyes slanted, and he coldly laughed. Radiant, Helian Peng, you are rather attentive to the affairs of the Yun family today, especially our Yun family's Yun Xinyu. You have been quite protective over him. Ah, but since you want to see my Yun family's patriarch's crest, let me fulfill your desire. As Yun Qinghong's voice fell, the arm that had always been pressed down on the armrest of wheelchair steadily rose up, and within his palm, a purple jade tablet, that fit nicely into the hollow of his palm, released a clear purple. Once this purple-colored jade tablet had made an appearance, every single Yun family disciple present clearly felt the purple cloud art within their bodies start to throb involuntarily. Even the blood within their bodies began stirring restlessly. All the present Yun family members who were older than 100 years of age began to stand up one after the other. Even the three grand elders Yun Jiang, Yun He and Yun Shi stood up as one, their faces displaying an expression that was deeply moved and astonished at the same time. It is the patriarch's crest. It is our Yun family's patriarch's crest. Grand Elder Yun Shi directly blurted these words out. A stately Grand Elder had actually lost control of his emotions, so one could imagine just how agitated he was. The patriarch's crest. It is not possible. Wasn't the patriarch's crest lost those 100 years ago? But, this aura. We can't be mistaken. This is without a doubt the patriarch's crest. It is definitely not possible for another one to exist in this world. The heavens have had mercy on us, our Yun family's patriarch's crest has finally returned to us. The young generation did not truly understand the significance of the concept behind the patriarch's crest. But for all of the seniors who were older than 100 years of age, it was the one thing in the Yun family that nothing could be compared to, a sacred artifact which was valued above all. And for the patriarch's crest to see the light of day once more, and in Yun Qinghong's hand no less, these Yun family seniors were moved to the point where they were besides themselves as tears began to flow from some of their eyes. The most shocked of all was undoubtedly the person beside Yun Qinghong, Mu Yuro. But even though she extremely anxious to know the answer, she did not inquire. Because now was not the time for questions. Ching Hong, just where did the patriarch's crest pop out from? Or could it be that? In these 100 years that have gone by, the patriarch's crest was actually never missing all along. Yun Jiang asked as he stood up, his white beard shaking with every word he said. Yun Ching Hong calmly replied, the patriarch's crest is our Yun family's sacred artifact. I would definitely not dare to conceal or bluff regarding the matter of whether it had been lost or not. It has indeed been lost 100 years ago, but due a trick of fate, it has been found once more. And as for how it came back, this is an internal matter for our Yun family alone. Because there are so many outsiders present today, it is better if we postpone this discussion to a later date. The three grand elders nodded their heads in unison and did not pursue the matter any further. The return of the patriarch's crest, this was the most blessed thing to ever happen to the Yun family in these 100 years. Compared to that, the matter of how it was recovered was truly secondary. Helian Peng. Yun Ching Hong deliberately flashed the patriarch's crest in Helian Peng's direction. Am I now allowed to call myself the Yun family patriarch? Helian Peng ground his teeth and his face had turned even greener. He had never ever thought that the patriarch's crest, which had clearly been lost those 100 years ago, would once again see the light of day, and in the hands of Yun Ching Hong no less. And even if he was not a member of the Yun family, he could tell that it was the genuine article in a single glance, with absolutely no chicanery involved. This was simply much too strange of an occurrence. The events which had happened today, the first half of the festivities all went according to expectations, but after that, the situation had morphed into something completely different from what had been arranged. Yun Xinyu, enter the sacred cloud arena immediately and prepare yourself to receive the profound handle soul search. This is an order. If you are truly as innocent as you claim to be, then why should you be afraid of the profound handle soul search? If you continue to show signs of hesitance, then that can only be the product of your guilty mind. Yun Ching Hong harshly declared. Yun Xinyu clenched both his fists tighter and tighter, to the point where it seemed like he was going to fracture the bones in his hands, and the sweat on his forehead began to stream down his face in little rivulets. He raised his head and said in a voice filled with willpower, Patriarch. It is not that I do not dare, it is that I cannot accept this. I, Yun Xinyu, have always been devoted and sincere. On what basis do I have to submit to the profound handle soul search in public just because an outsider launched a baseless accusation against me? Is it because he is the patriarch's godson? If the profound handle soul search proves my innocence, will this matter be swept under the rug after that, and this foster son of yours, will he just be let off with a slap on the wrist? Is that the way things are going to be? I cannot accept this. Patriarch, if you behave in this manner, you will only discourage our entire clan. I truly cannot accept it. You cannot accept it. Yun Ching Hong gave a humorless laugh. Since this is the case, this patriarch will make it so that you can accept it. Chea. Godfather. Yun Che responded. Yun Ching Hong declared solemnly, the matter of Yun Xinyu having to undergo the profound handle soul search is entirely due to you. After the profound handle soul search has been done, if he is truly involved in the assassination attempt on Xiao and number 7 under heaven, then you have indeed helped our Yun family deal with the phantom menace, and it will truly be a great merit that you have earned. And at that time the Elder Council will naturally reward you greatly, and you would have earned the approval of the entire Yun family. However, if Yun Xinyu is truly innocent, then you will have maliciously accused one of our Yun family disciples. Even if you are my godson, I won't let you off lightly. At that time, you must break all the meridians in your body in penance before all who are present here. Do you dare to give me that promise? If you do not dare, then this profound handle soul search also does not need to happen. To break all of his meridians. This extremely cruel conclusion caused all those who were present to feel a chill radiate throughout their entire body. Originally, many of the Yun family members felt that Yun Ching Hong's sudden explosion was to protect Yun Che, but once he spoke those words, not even a single one still harbored that notion in their minds. They even felt that Yun Ching Hong was being unusually cruel with his godson. Even though Yun Ching Hong nearly had 100% confidence in Yun Che, he still left a way out for Yun Che. To break all of one's meridians, in the eyes of any profound practitioner, even if it was a monarch, it would still be an extremely terrifying thing. But he and Muyuro had their meridians crippled for over 20 years, and Yunche could restore them to full health in the matter of 2 months. Even if he did end up having to break all of his meridians later, it should not take a great deal of effort for him to make a full recovery. Yes? Yunche nodded his head with no hesitation at all, and he declared in a loud voice, "If Yun Xinyu is proven to be innocent under the examination of the profound handle soul search, I will, before all those who are present, break all the meridians in my body. If I show any signs of reneging, any person who is present can take action against me, and I will not resist." Yun Qinghong slowly nodded his head. "Yun Xinyu, now do you still have anything else to say?" Now that the situation had progressed to such a stage, and Yun Qinghong had spoken at length, if Yun Xinyu continued to resist, then it would truly seem abnormal. Yun Xinyu's chest fiercely convulsed and both of his legs started to tremble slightly. He ground his teeth as he took one step towards the arena, but he could not take the second step, because out of all those who were present, he was the most clear on what the result of the profound soul search would be. HMPH. Yun Qinghong's expression morphed into one of fury, and he said in a deep voice, "Enforcement Elder, in the situation where no detrimental action is to be taken against the Yun family, how should someone, who is determined to go against the order of the Patriarch, be dealt with?" The Enforcement Elder was taken by surprise, but he hurriedly replied, reporting to Patriarch, "If one is to defy the orders given by the Patriarch, a light punishment would be forced confinement, and a heavy punishment. A heavy punishment would be to purge that person's body of his profound art and expel him from the family. Yun Xinyu, do you want to become a cripple and then be expelled from the family? Or do you want to enter the sacred cloud arena and prove your innocence? If you can show hesitation even when being asked to make such a simple decision, it simply proves that everything Yun Che had said were not lies after all." Yun Xinyu still did not move. At this time, his entire spirit was on the verge of collapse, and amidst the chaos and fright which dominated his mind, he could scarcely hear what Yun Qinghong was saying. "Since you still refuse to enter the sacred cloud arena, then I can only get someone to help you up on stage." Yun Qinghong faced the 3 Grand Elders and he said with a respectful look, "Our 3 Grand Elders, I regret that this current matter will require your assistance. Because it is only if the 3 Grand Elders took action personally, will everyone present will be satisfied." Yun Jiang, Yun Shi, and Yun He were all people who had already experienced everything under the sun. So Yun Xinyu's present condition had already clearly clued them in on what was happening. Once Yun Qinghong had finished speaking, Grand Elder Yun Shi took to the air and he instantly appeared in the space above Yun Xinyu. Before Yun Xinyu could even respond, profound energy that was as boundless as the sea had enveloped his entire body. He was not even able to make the least bit of resistance before everything grew dark before his eyes, as his consciousness was completely buried. Even his body appeared within the sacred cloud arena in a kneeling position. The Grand Elder's profound energy was so thick and robust that before anyone could see what was happening, Yun Xinyu already appeared in the middle of the sacred cloud arena. His whole body was frozen still and eyes were opened wide, but his gaze was completely unfocused. It was as if his soul had left his body. With a flash, Grand Elder Yun Shi had reappeared in his seat. He dryly said, "His consciousness has already been subjected to the profound handle soul search. This will persist for the next 15 minutes. Whatever the Patriarch wishes to inquire, go ahead and ask him." As he was forced to bear testament to how his son, the apple of his eye, was forced to kneel down like a criminal for all to see, and as he saw how the actions and words of the Grand Elders clearly showed that they were on the side of Yun Qinghong, Yun Weishan's entire body trembled and he roared in fury, "Good. Good. Go ahead and ask, go ahead and ask. My son's innocence does not fear any false accusation. Yun Qinghong, remember your previous words. If my son is innocent, then this Yun Che must break all of the meridians in his body. And today's insult, I will definitely not forget it. Please keep calm, Great Elder. Presently, are we not going to prove the innocence of your son? You should be even more at ease instead." Yun Qinghong nodded his head towards Yun Che. "Chea, push me up, I want to clearly hear every word that he is about to say." "Yes." Yun Che replied, then jumped off the stage. After that, he carried Yun Qinghong's wheelchair and returned to the sacred cloud arena, landing right in front of Yun Xinyu. Your Highness, what should we do? Behind Duke Huiyi, the venerable stone dragon whispered to him in the softest of voices. Duke Huiyi's face was as inscrutable as still water, his fingers spread out like a fan and his index finger made a slight hook as it performed an obscure gesture. Great Elder, Yu Bai, please withdraw. And the various elders, will you please keep an eye on the Great Elder? Do not allow him to personally enter the sacred cloud arena. As for Duke Huiyi, please do whatever pleases you. Yun Qinghong said in a steady voice as he looked at Yun Xinyu. HMPH, Duke Huiyi snorted lightly, but he did not leave the sacred cloud arena. Instead, he fixed both his eyes on Yun Qinghong's back as if he could pierce through it with his gaze. Both Mu Yubai and Yun Weitian complied with those words and left the sacred cloud arena. But Yun Weitian said in a furious voice, I do not need anyone to look out for me. My son is definitely innocent. Yun Qinghong, I'll make sure you regret this. Heh. Yun Qinghong laughed dryly. Yun Weitian, do not ever think that just because you are his father, you understand everything about him. But I am more than willing to believe that whatever things that he has done, you have remained ignorant of it. Cheah, the one who accused Yun Xinyu of being involved in the assassination attempt of Xiao and number 7 under heaven was you, so why don't you personally lead the interrogation? Especially since you are the person who uncovered the clues in the first place, you would know best on what questions should be asked. Understood. Yun Che nodded his head and his gaze crossed with Yun Qinghong's. Both of them laughed involuntarily as they met each other's gazes. During today's grand meeting, Yun Qinghong had initially maintained his silence and he was silent to the point that it was easy to forget that he was even present. But from the moment he had opened his mouth, the entire situation had fallen into the palm of his hand. He destroyed the grandeur of Duke Huiyi and he rendered Helian Peng utterly speechless. He made every single person from the Yun family hang on his every word and action. He made Yun Xinyu's resentful cries for justice vanish completely, and just a few words from him caused the Grand Elders to personally take action to restrict Yun Xinyu. Yun Che rarely admired anyone. He originally thought that he would be the star of the This Yun family Great Assembly, but beyond all expectations, the true role of the protagonist was easily taken away by Yun Qinghong. He let out a silent sigh in his heart. No wonder I am so excellent. It's because I actually have such a formidable father. Oh, what he must have been like in his prime. While the Yun family members present were being led by the nose by the practically flawless scenario which unfolded before their eyes, Yun Qinghong had silently seen through it all. When all who were present began to question and ridicule Yun Che, he chose to believe instead. It had nothing to do with his trust in Yun Che, it had everything to do with Yun Qinghong being sufficiently wise and far-sighted. Yun Che strode forward, and once he was alongside Yun Qinghong. He wanted to remind Yun Qinghong to be careful of someone making a move to silence Yun Xinyu, but before the words came out of his mouth, he swallowed them instead. He believed that with Yun Qinghong's wisdom and foresight, he basically did not need to remind him of this. What is your name? Yun Che stood before Yun Xinyu and seemed to begin the interrogation in earnest. Yun Xinyu spoke in a manner which was slow and lifeless, but it was sufficiently clear for all to hear. How old are you this year? 27 years old. As Yun Xinyu spoke, a trail of saliva spilled from the corner of his mouth, then dangled to the floor. What type of girls do you like the most? Ones with big butts. Oh. I really couldn't tell that the both of us actually would have something in common. Yun Che opened his eyes wide. So who was the girl that you slept with most recently? Drunken River House's Lady Chrysanthemum. Phut. The audience immediately spat their drinks at that answer. You bastard. Yun Weishan's was practically standing straight on end and he pointed at Yun Che while he scolded vociferously. What kind of rubbish questions are you asking? You are clearly afraid of being found false, and you are deliberately putting things off. Yun Che swiftly made a pacifying gesture. Great Elder Yun, please do not be angry. This is the first time I have ever seen the legendary profound handle soul search being performed, so I just really wanted to test whether the legends were really true and that any question I asked would be answered. Yes, I think I'm about done with testing it out. This profound handle soul search is truly mystical, but it is time for us to truly start the interrogation. But, TSK, to think that the respected son of a Yun family great elder would actually visit a brothel when he wants the companionship of a woman. Oh. But at least he would rather visit a brothel, unlike the disciples of some other grand families who would go around raping and dominating innocent women. Truly his actions fill me with admiration for him. It is just that this Lady Chrysanthemum. When I hear this name, I can't help but think that the tastes of the great young Master Yun just seem to be a tad bit on the heavy side. Yun Weishan's entire body shook uncontrollably and his gaze filled with violence. He looked as if he hated that he could not rush up on stage and have it out with Yunche there and then. Oh. Right away, right away. Yunche coughed heavily as he casually shot a glance at the expression of the silent Duke Hui Yi. After which, he proceeded to ask in a serious tone, Yun Xinyu, let me ask you. 2 months ago, how did you know that Yun Xiao and number 7 under heaven would be meeting outside the city? Yunche did not ask whether you knew, instead he asked, how did you know? Yun Weitian gave a cold smirk and he said with utter contempt, under the effects of the profound handle soul search, all the words uttered come straight from the depths of the soul, so there can be no deception. Did you think that if you used this sort of guiding question, he would obediently spin a tale for you to hear? But as Yun Xinyu opened his mouth, Yun Weishan's expression instantly froze in place. That day, I was strolling past Yun Xiao's courtyard. And I just happened to hear the sound transmission that Yun Xiao had sent to number 7 under heaven. To arrange to meet the next morning at 10 in the morning, at the Rain Cloud Pavilion, which was 35 kilometers away from the city, Yun Xinyu replied in a slow but clear voice. Oh. Yunche nodded his head. Indeed it was as I expected, you did eavesdrop on Yun Xiao's sound transmission. This? Yun Xiao's tongue seemed to have tied itself into a knot. He remembered that on the first day he met Yunche asked him whether he had used sound transmission every time he asked number 7 under heaven on a date, and he also asked if anyone had overheard that particular sound transmission. The sound of tightly packed whispers began to circulate among the crowd. Yunche's first legitimate question and Yun Xinyu's subsequent reply had caused the people who had already began forming suspicions about Yun Xinyu to immediately smell something funny. Yun Weishan's expression had become ugly in a flash, but he swiftly yelled out, so what if that is true? Xinyu merely overheard those words by accident. Does it mean that because he unwittingly heard that sound transmission, he is the scoundrel who arranged for their assassination? Translator's note, Lady Chrysanthemum is Chinese wordplay on the word anus, because which means chrysanthemum is also slang for the word anus. If you want to know why, Google chrysanthemum and draw your own conclusions. I shan't be charged with corrupting young minds XD. TNTON out. 07. Great Elder Yun, don't be impatient, I am merely asking my first real question. If he's innocent, you'll hear it for yourself soon enough. Yunche patiently said. Yun Xinyu, let me ask you, did you tell this matter to someone else and plot to assassinate Yun Xiao and number 7 under heaven when they were together? Yunche asked in a stern manner. Yunche's question was straight to the point. Yun Xinyu only had to give a very simple answer. Yes or no. Yes, Yun Xinyu answered lifelessly. Woho! Once the word, yes, came out, the entire Yun family was in an uproar and everyone was stunned. No matter what, they did not dare believe what they had heard with their ears. That was a profound handle soul search, and it was a profound handle soul search personally administered by a grand elder. Under the effects of the profound handle soul search, anything they say would definitely be the truth. The Yun family who possessed the profound handle all completely believed this. The hope of the entire clan, the strongest, most respected, the humble and kind Yun Xinyu of the younger generation. He was actually involved in the attempted assassination of Yun Xiao and number 7 under heaven. The shock his reply caused for the Yun family was earth-shattering. If it were not because he said it personally under the effect of profound handle soul search, they would rather believe that ghosts existed in this world than this fact. How can this? How can this be? Yun Xiao's mouth was agape in shock and his eyes lost focus. He was unable to recompose himself for a long while. Yun family's most elite member of the same generation, his most respected person, was actually just as Yun Che said, the person who tried to harm him and number 7 under heaven 2 months ago. Furthermore, when Yun Che was picking on Yun Xinyu on stage before, he had even stepped out to defend him, shouting that it was impossible. Bass, tard! Number 1 under heaven shouted as he jumped up, his eyes were downcast as he cracked his knuckles. After investigating hard for 2 months, he couldn't find any clues, which caused the anger and hate that had built up to be much more intense. Now that the actual culprit had appeared, he could no longer control it, as it was about to explode, understandable since his investigation had yielded no results. Because he never expected that the culprit behind the incident was from the Yun family. Compose yourself. Unparalleled under heaven patted his shoulder, looked at Yun Xinyu, and calmly said, if it were Yun Xinyu alone, there is no reason for him to harm number 7, and even more so Yun Xiao. This incident isn't so simple. Let's continue watching. Number 1 under heaven gritted his teeth, as he controlled himself. The moment Yun Xinyu said, yes, Yun Weishan's entire body trembled, nearly collapsing to the ground, but he immediately shouted with a trembling voice, Impossible. There must be some reason behind this. It's impossible that my son would do this without a reason. There must be a proper reason. All these years, Yun Weitian has always treated Yun Xinyu as his pride, and until now, he still would not believe that Yun Xinyu was someone that would harbor malicious intent. He was his birth father, clearly the person who understood him the most in this world. I believe that everyone present here would like to know the reason behind this. Yun Che said as he looked at Yun Xinyu. Before this, he thought that both Yun Weitian and Yun Xinyu were involved, but looking at Yun Weishan's reactions, he started to believe that he actually did not know anything at all. He could now see how scheming, well-planned, and how of good an actor Yun Xinyu was. Then Great Elder Yun, you'd better open up your ears and listen to the reason behind this. Yun Che continued before asking, Yun Xinyu, answer in detail why you work together with people outside the family to harm your fellow clansman Yun Xiao and the innocent number 7 under heaven. Yun Xinyu opened his mouth and replied robotically, Yun family, and the under heaven clan are both loyal to the little demon empress. Killing number 7 under heaven, while letting Yun Xiao go. Under heaven family would be enraged with the Yun family, if the two families clash, even if it isn't mutual destruction. They would not be on the same side together. Yun Family Plaza was dead silent as everyone listened attentively, afraid they would miss out on a single word. When Yun Xinyu had finished speaking, everyone revealed faces of shock and fear. The 3 grand elders stood up in unison as expressions of deep shock appeared on their aged faces. Yun Weitian trembled, before weakly crashing onto the ground. His eyes stare wide opened, yet his gaze lifeless as incoherent speech escaped from his mouth. Impossible. This is impossible. Impossible. This cannot be. The truth behind what Yun Xinyu was simply too appalling, his motive. More accurately speaking, the motive of the people behind this was to reduce the power of the faction supporting the Little Demon Empress. Little Demon Empress was the highest monarch of the illusory demon realm. Such actions were blatant attempts to revolt. In the face of such a frightening answer, no one in the Yun family dared to utter a word. Never had they ever thought that Yun Xinyu would be the actual culprit who harmed a fellow clansman. What was even more unimaginable was that it actually implicated such a groundbreaking huge matter. If it were not for Yun Che lending a hand to Yun Xiao and number 7 under heaven that day, their plans would have succeeded and under heaven family would be enraged with the Yun family, resulting in a huge conflict and would even cause them to not be able to bear with one another. After all, number 7 under heaven was not any ordinary member of the under heaven clan, she was actually greatest ambition under heaven's only daughter. Yun Xiao asking her out was also an indisputable fact. Even more frightening was that today, they were all supporting Yun Xinyu to be the next head of the Yun family, and he almost succeeded the position. Whilst thinking about that, the entire family broke out in cold sweat. Yun Che sternly said, Yun Xinyu, arming a fellow clansman and finding an opportunity to reduce the power of the faction supporting the Little Demon Empress. This is a heinous crime. You are the son of the Great Elder, your status is good and your talent isn't bad either. You are well praised and depended upon by the family who even pushed for you to be the next head of the family. Everything is yours for the taking. Why do you have to do this? Why exactly have you planned this, or were you forced by someone? As Yunche finished speaking, everyone held their breath, especially all the Yun family elders, who stood up and stared at Yun Xinyu. An accusation that originally caused them to become enraged had suddenly turned into such a shocking truth. Yun Xinyue's face contorted. Facing these questions from Yunche, his mind suddenly experienced pain. His voice became hoarse, yet he still narrated without hiding anything. 6 years ago, Master poisoned me with the heart-disabling venom. If I follow his instructions, after Master overthrows the little demon empress, I, the new patriarch, would be named with the title of a king. If I were to disobey, I would die without a burial place. Heart-disabling venom. Numerous shocked screams overlapped one another, and the lifeless Yun Weitian, upon hearing Yun Xinyue's answer, lifted his head agitatedly as his whole body trembled. Yunche had never heard of heart-disabling venom before, but the same venom in different places would often have different names. Him not hearing of it before did not mean he did not know what venom it was. Just as he was about to use his profound energy on Yun Xinyue's body to investigate what venom it was, an icy cold killing intent came from his rear right side. Although the killing intent was hidden, how could it escape Yunche's sharp senses? He quickly gave up on investigating and walked forward to ask in a quick manner, "Tell me, who are those that attempted to assassinate Yun Xiaoan? Who is the owner of yours?" "The ones who attacked Yun Xiao and number 7 under heaven is, from the Hellion family. Master, is Duke Huai Palaces." Boom! The stage below their feet was suddenly destroyed and an earth shard that was vibrating with a dirty yellow profound glow shot up from the ground. Yunche's first reaction was to instantly retreat. At the same time, he using his palm and pushed Yun Xinyu backwards a few steps. However, the energy within the earth shard was too overwhelming, and because Yun Xinyu was not in control of his body whilst under the effects of profound handle soul search, he did not have any chance at avoiding the attack, and was completely pierced through by the shard. Because of that, he was then skewered in midair and large amounts of blood were sprayed around. "Xinyu!" Yun Weitian screamed in horror, sprinting towards the sacred Yun stage like a madman. All the elders of the Yun family were shocked as they ran towards the stage, and the scene was instantly a mess. "Duke Huiyi, what is the meaning of this?" Yun Qinghong asked in anger. The one who mercilessly attacked Yun Xinyu was the venerable stone dragon who stood behind Duke Huiyi. Currently, the scales on his arms were still emitting a dull profound glow. "This Yun Xinyu deserves death for maligning my royal father." Duke Huiyi laughed with a darkened face, "And Yunche, the brat who spoiled my plans, must die as well. Kill him." Boom! The entire sacred cloud arena exploded and dust filled the air. A thick dense yellow ray shot straight towards Yunche's chest. There was only Yun Qinghong beside Yunche, as the others were not on the stage yet, so they were unable to intervene at all. Just as the yellow profound light was less than a meter away from Yunche, Yun Qinghong, who was sitting on his wheelchair, stretched out his arm. The movement of his arm was very slow, so slow that even a person with no profound cultivation would be able to see the movement of his arm. And yet, with such a slow speed, it instantly appeared in front of Yunche, blocking the attack. Rip! A huge lightning barrier appeared from Yun Qinghong's palm, completely blocking the venerable stone dragon's attack. Afterwards, the figure of a person flashed, followed by an instant flash of lightning. Yun Qinghong appeared in front of the venerable stone dragon, and a right palm that was glowing purple struck violently against his chest, knocking the unprepared venerable stone dragon far away. "WH? What? WH, at? Ah. The Yun family's grand elders, disciples. Number 1 under heaven and unparalleled under heaven, and Hellion Peng, who was about to strike, all of them were stunned. They looked at Yun Qinghong, who had suddenly attacked, with an expression of shock that almost became fear. That was due to the fluctuation caused by his majestic profound strength that was so strong that even the 3 grand elders were afraid. WH, what exactly was going on here? Yun Qinghong, wasn't he already crippled 22 years ago? Boom! 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 Yun Qinghong and the venerable stone dragon exchanged moves in midair, and every time their attacks met, a deafening noise was produced. Everyone below watched on in their shock, and no one actually went to help out. A fight at the level of monarchs, even within Demon Imperial City, was something rarely seen. The extremely strong profound fluctuations caused the entire Yun family to tremble intensely. In midair, the mighty venerable stone dragon had been suppressed into defeat by Yun Qinghong's purple cloud art, with barely any chances to retaliate. Spurts of dark-colored dragon blood were spilt continuously, and it nearly became a rain of blood. Erg. Gra. In the air, a yellow light flashed, and suddenly, dark clouds surged as deafening noises surrounded the area. A 300-meter-long huge dragon covered in stone scales bellowed and rushed towards Yun Qinghong. In an instant, rocks appeared in midair, covering the whole sky. That's the true form of the venerable stone dragon. One of the Yun family elders uttered in surprise. HMPH. Facing the huge dragon body of the venerable stone dragon that caused others to be shocked, Yun Qinghong merely snorted slightly as his body flashed, and in the next instant, he was on the spinal part of the venerable stone dragon's back, punching down at it. The fist easily split apart the dragon scales, directly smashing against his body. The dragon body of venerable stone dragon began to writhe about in pain. A ball of dense purple lightning started to spread from his back, and in a mere 2 seconds completely engulfed the entire dragon's body, turning the stone dragon into a purple-colored lightning dragon. Scram! Following Yun Qinghong's cold voice, countless rays of lightning on the venerable stone dragon's body exploded. Boom 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 boom. Countless lightning profound energy crazily exploded, so dense that it seemed as though it was the anger of the lightning god. The skies above the Yun family household were dyed purple by the lightning profound energy, and every time it exploded, the deafening sound seemed to nearly tear through the skies. In the midst of the thousands profound lightning explosions, the venerable stone dragon let out cries of immense pain as his dragon blood rained down like torrential rain. Bang! Following the disappearance of the last bit of lightning, the relieved venerable stone dragon heavily crashed onto the ground. The moment he landed, his dragon body disappeared, and he returned to his human form. He panted as he shakily attempted to stand up, and just as he was about to stand up straight, he vomited out more than 10 mouthfuls of blood before collapsing back onto the ground, unable to stand again. Yun Qinghong slowly descended from the skies as he coldly looked at him. Venerable stone dragon, all these years, I've respected you as a senior and have never disrespected you before, yet you dare to come to my Yun family's grounds to act so wildly. I'm afraid you're not qualified enough to do so. Episode 92 is end here. Next episode coming tomorrow. Thanks for watching.